Greetings, Dr. Jeffrey Scott here. This is my Market MRI Pro update for, what day is today? Thursday, December 11th, the day after the Fed. Well, what did we see? Did we see follow through? Depends where you looked, but the Dow, the S&P 500, and the Russell 2000 all rallied to new highs. Unfortunately, now we're going to have to start asking the question, are we becoming short-term overbought? Again, December 11th, 2025, Market MRI Pro at gmail.com is my email address. Google Groups, Top Down Trader, website Market MRI Pro, which is still under construction. As always, this is for educational purposes only. Anything I talk about or recommend should be in the spirit of education and not investment advice. The intent of the video is to demonstrate the tools of top-down analysis and how I apply them, specifically my tools. Trading involves risk. You are solely responsible for any investment decisions you make. I may own or intend to buy or sell any stock mentioned in this report. Trading stocks and options should be considered risky. You should consult with your financial advisor before making trades, and I have tools in multiple platforms. Futures right now are mixed. Gold is down a bit, so is the NASDAQ. Lululemon up 10%, Restoration Hardware up 9.8%, Broadcom down 3.2%, and Costco down just a few pennies. My Google group is called Top Down Trader. Just go to Google Groups, sign in, go to all groups, look for Top Down Trader, let us know how you want to be contacted. It's free. You'll get some discounts here and there, and more importantly, you'll get invited to participate in educational events like the one I'm going to be doing this weekend. Let's just open up right now and take a look at the leaders list, which we put together at my meeting in October. And the intent of a leaders list was to find the best performing stocks in the market at that time and then see if they would not give us a clue by not rolling over until the market was done going up and then preceding the general markets by breaking down first. So we had a little bit of a head fake here, rapidly closed back above the 50, and we're now just going sideways. So interestingly, we did not on our new high, on our, we call it the E index, but for this meeting I called it the Praveen index because he built the program. We did not really trade higher today. So down day, just a bit on the index. Lots of NASDAQ stocks is probably why. So skip this. News and earnings. Now, I mentioned a couple days ago that, 2 days ago, that perhaps on Wednesday night the market overreacted to Powell's comments. We heard all week and last week that we'd have a bearish Fed rate cut. It didn't sound very bearish to me. And I think that's where the rally came in. We got two Fed speakers before the market opens. Are they going to be inclined to talk down the market in their response? Don't know. But that's one thing that could impact your portfolio and mine before the market opens. From an earnings perspective, not much on Friday. We'll look at next week's over the weekend. I will be doing Saturday, December 13th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, a support program for all owners of my platform, those thinking about it, and frankly, anybody that wants to talk about top-down trading. I share my performance. I won't, somebody asked on the Metastock presentation, will you show us how you do? What do you expect? And no, I won't do it on somebody else's presentation. But at every one of these, I've been sharing my Schwab account, which is my main trading account, pretty much my only personal trading account. And the performance is pretty outstanding this year. I'll just leave it at that. And we can talk about it on the weekend. Doesn't mean you're going to get the same performance. It's more than just a tool in being a stock picker. It's how you manage your trades. We'll look at new features, the Metastock add-on, review the markets, and then spend the last half hour or so on my options decision making. For more information about anything that I do talk about or my programs, marketmripro@gmail.com. If you have the Market MRI Pro app, you can get help at coding at marketmripro.com. And please join my top-down trader group. Typically do 2 live seminars during the year. a June one that I do not control in Orange County, and then a meeting in Florida, typically in October and November, that I do control. So I can confirm that we'll be doing it again in 2026 in Florida, waiting to get a decision made on the meeting in Orange County. On to the charts. So let's just start with my daily brief. Here I look at my favorite ETFs, their 1 day, 5 day performance, where they've closed in their range. First thing you notice is the market ETFs are the top four, and they all closed right at the top. That's bullish. Diamonds led 1.35%, followed by IWM at 1.17, and the Spider at 0.23. Each of those three set new all-time closing highs, and I believe all-time highs. The Qs, not yet. They were down 0.32. Oracle brought down a lot of the AI complexes. And NVIDIA, I think, probably because of some Chinese news and whether their chips were being bootlegged or brought over there. The dollar was down another 36 cents after the rate cut. Bitcoin down 0.74, and volatility was down 1.8. Look at how we're doing on the net new highs minus new lows. On the NYSE and the NASDAQ, both approaching, well, both triple digits. You can see the number of new highs has ratcheted higher. So this market breadth is improving. The market has improved. If you look down here, you can see most of the sectors and industry groups are positive in these three indexes, and we had 72% of the stocks were up in the S&P 1500, only 53 in the NASDAQ, and 69 in the NYSE. Volume was mixed, unlike yesterday when volume was high. If we look at the S&P 500 sectors, you can see leadership came from materials. Boy, look at gold and silver. Financials and industrials and healthcare. The laggard was tech, again, the Oracle issues, energy, and communication services. Is this more rotation? Certainly seems to be to me. And without a big win by Broadcom, maybe we'll continue to see a little bit of tech weakness. Don't know that. Haven't really evaluated it too much. Interestingly, tech finished at the top of the range as it opened down 69% here, so it opened down a little bit over 1%, 1.2%. If we look at what themes were working, metals, mining, silver, gold, uranium, clean tech, cannabis, aerospace, infrastructure, leisure, copper, Southeast Asia, and retail made it into the list. What was lagging today from a theme perspective, oil exploration, social media, semis, artificial intelligence, genomics and biotech, China internet, cybersecurity, consumer discretionary. So definitely some rotation out of what have been some of the stronger names. So a good day in the market probably for most of us, unless you're heavily weighted in tech. Look at the timing model. Really clean charts you can see on the spiders. First of all, they're all in a buy. Spiders, Qs, diamonds, Russell. You could see a new closing high on the spiders, and maybe not an all-time high. I don't think we've see the high on this bar was 689.70, and the high today was 689.27. So all-time closing high 689.06, 687.39. And very close to all-time highs. On the Qs, you could see we actually traded much lower, closed above where we opened. That's why it's an open box, but we were down on the session because it's red. The Russell, wow. Let me say that again. Wow. All-time highs, all-time closing highs. And the diamonds, all-time highs, all-time closing highs. Not only is the daily timing model all buy, so is the weekly, and of course, so is the monthly. Looking at the U.S. index ETFs, you'll see as we power through. Now, what could go wrong here? Well, we're about to go through a weak period for a couple of days of seasonality, bottoming around the 18th before we get the Santa Claus rally. Now, the question is this coming? And I'll show you some evidence that suggests to me that we need a pause to refresh at the minimum here. But other than that, what a strong close, closing at the highs. Beautiful looking chart. Nothing ugly here. The Qs, the good news about the Qs is they recovered much of their pullback and closed only down 0.32%. Nothing broken, but the same thing. Do we have a few days of weakness or sideways movement coming up? If we look at the diamonds, beautiful uptrend, all-time highs, all-time closing highs, and the seasonality line says we could see a couple days of weakness. If we look at the Russell 2000, I mean, what a launch. All-time highs, all-time closing highs. And we could see seasonality would say a few days of a pullback before the Santa Claus rally comes in. Now, seasonality does not mean that's what's going to happen. It means it could happen. It means over the last 5, 10, or 20 years, depending on the color, that is the pattern. And I'm going to show you my concerns in a few moments. Volatility was down again and getting into that area of resting that we like. So you can see the VIX was down today 6.85%, the VIX futures, and the dollar has broken down and heading back towards this line. If we look at commodities, yesterday we talked about gold, and I talked about a number of different things you could buy, stocks and ETFs. I'm playing Nugget, and one of our watchers put a comment about that in on the YouTube. And you could see a breakout, clean breakout from this descending trend line. Silver, all-time highs. Again, what else is new? Up another 2.76. Gold, a little bit more sedate, but closing at its highs up 1.08. Oil still holding above this trend line, but has dropped over the last week. Boy, natural gas just plummeting here. And then what could be exciting for us is the 10-year was down 1%, 1.17, and the 30-year was down 0.46%. So unlike yesterday where we ended up with the rates closing higher and concerned what that means by the bond market, they did come down today. If we look at the buckets, buckets don't tell me we're overbought. It shows me 10% of the NYSE above the bands, 9 of the NASDAQ, 12 of the Russell 2000, and 11 of the S&P 1500. Definitely bullish, but not overbought. This isn't the signal that's worrying me. If we look at market breadth, this is really market breadth 1. You could see the NYSE, like the Russell, clean breakout, all-time highs, all-time closing highs. And, it's going to get frothy soon. We are not quite at the point on the stocks above the green 17-day where we would expect us to be pulling back, but we're getting close there. The NASDAQ composite, like the NASDAQ, closed a little bit off the prior highs, but way off the lows of the session, and also a similar pattern where it's starting to get short-term overbought. Down here, we look at the new high, new lows, positive for both, as was AD line and up-down volume. And as I pointed yesterday, new highs in the markets are built upon new highs in stocks, and we are seeing a lot more new highs than new lows. Now, what has me spooked is the 13-week new high, new low. People know how much I enjoy this indicator. Now, we're not at the we have to pull back tomorrow level, but if we look at December 11th, let's highlight, you're going to have 0.91 on the spider. It can go up a little bit before it reverses. 0.96 on the S&P 1500. It's kind of at that point right now where you expect a pullback or sideways. It can get more overbought. You're at 0.80 on the NASDAQ, nowhere close, and 0.95 on the Russell 2000. So it's really the Russell 2000 and the S&P 1500 who look like they may have moved short term a little too far too fast, and they might need to cool off a little bit. Things can get much more extended, so they can still go higher, but it would not worry me, surprise me, or disappoint me if I saw the market sort of follow that seasonality and pause their run for a couple of days. If we look at the ratio charts. Sorry about that, mental block. You could see, look at materials. What a massive move in the market. Look at industrials. Another massive move in the market. This is a split that hasn't been factored in by our software provider. Technology pulled back a little bit, as you know. Healthcare picked up a little bit, and the staples, real estate, still kind of weak. If we go into the JAS layout, we're going to see the tools that I use for bottoms up and top down analysis. To start with, today 3,808 stocks made my screen, which is simple. NYSE, Amex, and NASDAQ, $1 and 100,000 shares traded, you make the cut. If I go into my top down review, you can see I still got 3,808 stocks. They are inside all these sectors. If we looked, let's look at 2-day force, and let's look at industrials, utilities, and basic materials. Now, that leaves behind consumer staples. That's okay. Yeah, let's go by percentage. I'm trying to decide what sort I want to use today. Materials, industrials, financial services. These are the industry groups in those three sectors. Let's do the same rank. And we've got auto parts, specialty business, aluminum, silver, gold, precious metals, metal, financials, copper, IT. So what I've done here is I took the three leading sectors today by percent change on the broad markets. I then took the top 10 industry groups, and we have 248 stocks, so let's just filter them for minimum of 5 and 500,000 shares, and then we're down to 141. I then look at these to see if there's anything that looks attractive to trade, and let's rank it by the number of positive impulses. So Visa looks interesting here. They were talking about MasterCard, Visa, and others after hours today. So somewhere in here, we have a trend line. And I may have drawn it sort of here, capturing a couple more highs. We broke out of that trend line today. I'm going to turn off the John Person indicator because it's not available yet. Few people have it. We'll have more people can buy it, most likely by the end of the month. Supposed to have turned it off. Let me see that again. There you go. So Visa has broken a downtrend trend line. That's been going on for a while. Look at the fundamentals. Earnings not to January 29th, 314 versus $1.75. So that's about 12-14% growth. It's had surprises on earnings almost every quarter. Same thing with revenue. Pays a teeny weeny dividend. That one looks interesting. GTX. Wow. Auto parts, I believe. Just highlight. Turbocharger electric boosting technologies. Big move up. Sideways move here. Is it ready to roll? It's going to have 36 cents versus 47. I like buying growth. Last night we had ATI as one of the specialty metals. Today we have Carpenter. You can see here another one of these specialty metal alloy companies. 219 coming in against 166. That's 53 cents. I like that. That's about got a little bit less than a third growth. It's had surprises galore. And you could see teeny weeny dividend. This one looks interesting as well. Big move up, pullback, and a breakout. It's got a CPR, volume breakout momentum coming from the squeeze. You're going to see this most likely on my A scan. Century Aluminum, another metal play. SSRM, silver. Earnings are out. We're going to have 60 cents coming in versus 10 cents. Woohoo, that's a big growth. That looks interesting. Draw my little trend line. This one's getting close. So PPTA, MA, MasterCard. Does it look almost as good as Visa? Kind of looks similar. I like MasterCard here as well. Highcroft Mining. Look at this run of miners. Hecla, silver miner. Some really good stocks here. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to look at the leading stocks and those leading industry groups from the leading sectors. And I've already got 2 or 3 that I can be actionable tomorrow. Visa or a MasterCard, CRS, and maybe one of those miners. All right, I don't need to look at 1,000 things. Let's go look at the impulse side, and let's look at a couple of my favorite scans. So what's really cool about the way that we built this program, in which word I will use it, in my what I feel, what I believe, but obviously I'm biased, so my biased thoughts is that it's this power here to look at patterns, trading signals, filters that are done server based, which means they're really, really fast. So let me set this up. Here, give me 1 second. All right, we have the 3808. Now, if you're joining me from excuse me, Metastack, what you don't have that to me is one of the key parts of my analysis is this grid. This grid has a number of different lists that are standard. I add my own lists in it, and it has my singles here. And what I can do is I can develop scans based upon my various signals. And as I was mentioning a second ago, it's server-based doing the calculations. Now, our hope is to have this scanner independent of the rest of the platform and release it on Metastock sometime in 26 using Metastock data with the Metastock symbols, which are a little bit different. And that would probably be an annual thing, but allow you to use the Metastock data source. That is our work plan. My A plus scan is my favorite double momentums. In Metastock, these are the momentum plays. We have a lot today. Let's just go quickly. AXTA, why buy a downtrend if I can find an uptrend? But it's one of those alloy companies. BWA, Borg Warner Auto Parts, breaking out from a sideways move. Let's take a look at when earnings come out. $1.14 versus $1.01, so it's a slow grower, which is why its multiple is 9.89, 1.38% dividend. Elevance, which is a payer that I know very well. I noticed today that it broke out above the 200. That was a pretty big move. Flywire Corporation, probably moving up with a lot of the space-related stocks that are going up right now. I'd say that every time. It's not a space. It is a payment processor. There's a different fly that I was thinking of, but you could see Flywire. We talked about it last night because it had moved up. Let me turn that off. With a relative strength OBV from a squeeze, so it was on the A scan yesterday. It makes the A plus today. Whoops. First Solar. Solar, we talked about Shoals yesterday, SHLS. This is the one that I own, and it obviously had a fairly nice move today and really getting ready, I think, to go on a major move, which is why I own it. First Solar, going to have 521 versus 365. If it has that, that's over 50% or about 50% growth on a stock with a PE of 13. that has had some earnings failures here and negative surprises, but this is one I'll be watching. IMVT was on last night, had a nice move today, but closed lower. I don't know this one, except we mentioned last night that they must be partnering with Roivant, and I wonder if Roivant isn't the company that's co-developing one of their big products. Um, ROIV has been moving with this, and you could see ROIV had a nice move, similar candle today, closing there. All right. JP Morgan, this thing has been kind of going sideways. Earnings are January 21st. Let's close that earnings. I'd like to see it break out of probably the height here. LAUR was on one of the scans last night, probably the A list, breaking out here. MET, MetLife. What dividend does this thing pay? 3 something. RTX, Raytheon, Industrial, Aerospace, Aero Defense stock. I don't know. Maybe I don't want to start it there. Let's check this out. Let's see. That one's breaking out. That one looks really attractive. Rhythm, a biotech. Woof. This was on our scan last night, wasn't it? It was maybe not. I thought it was on my scan last night. Shoals, this is the other solar company. Big move. We talked about it last night. SPXC, SPX Technologies, another one that seems to be breaking out from a flag. Unit, also in, this is real estate? I thought it was insurance. Let's look at it. Unity, Real Estate Investment Trust, 8.1 percent. It owns 6.7 million fiber strand miles and other commercial real estate or communications real estate. I like the dividend, and this thing had a nice breakout here as well. I like drawing these because we can go back later and see how they did. And then this was Zine XHR, one of the hotel companies from last night. So I like the fact that last night we saw IMVT, we saw SHLS, we saw Roivant, we saw XHR, and they progressed over to this scan. Now, I will tell you the scan is updating real time, more than once a minute during the day. And when I have time, and I'm sitting at a medical meeting, so I had time, I actually dropped down the scan and started prospecting during the day today. The other one of my favorite scans is called the A, and this A scan basically is a stock that's squeezing, that has relative strength at OBV breakouts, at least one of momentum and a breakout from a squeeze. And let's see what we got. AUPH, a biotech, waiting for it to break out. Chubb, insurance company. Constellation Energy, this one is very involved with data centers, and I think some nuclear. Doesn't pay much of a dividend. It's going to have 220 versus 244. Not a growth stock, but this is a stock that's often identified when you're talking to things in the data center space. That box here does show news, and you can click on the hyperlinks and you could actually bring it up. So this one's poised for a breakout. CRS we looked at earlier. I said we'd probably see it again. I think this one looks good, just like ATI did last night. Break it out of a trend line. CPR volume breakout momentum from a squeeze with relative strength and OBV turning up. Elevance we looked at. Ericsson, boy, that's an old name in the teleconference space. I guess that's Ericsson. Here's that payment processor FLYW. For solar again, here is what used to be a low-cost gold stock, Goldfields. I remember it was $9. You could see $1.15 in earnings versus 29 cents. That's a 300% plus gain. That was the last one, 822. Probably has earnings coming out. Gildan Activewear, uptrend sideways, broke out above the 50. A CPR, but momentum breakout from a squeeze with good relative strength in OBV. Like that one. Here's a GTX IMBT we saw. KW, Kennedy Wilson Holdings. Is this a builder? Real estate investment trust, multifamily and office properties. Here's LAUR. I mentioned ROIV. Probably wait until it closes above here, but it's close. There's your SHLS Solar, your SPX Corp, which I liked, and I think we drew a line, and then XHR Zenith. So it is now 31 minutes in, and I'm going to say goodbye. But think about what we accomplished, and then deduct 25% because I wouldn't be talking this much if I was doing this on my own. We looked at numerical performance on the markets and some of the S&P sectors and some themes. We then went into the charts. We looked at a timing model. We looked at the various indexes. We concluded that some of the breadth indicators suggest a pause to refresh might be coming. Then we looked at top-down analysis. We found a couple of things that look good: Visa, MasterCard, ATI, among others. And then we went from a bottoms up. We looked at my favorite two scans, and we identified a handful more. I probably got 10 stocks from this list that I've written down, and I will look at them again later. I'll figure out which is my favorite. I'll look at the pre-market if I have a chance. And when I'm on the plane tomorrow, I'll put in some trades that may or may not get filled. So have a great day. My goal is to make this easy, help you help yourself become your own guru, and do it so you still have time for your family. Take care, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Or if not, Saturday morning.